ends now. You've been government 9 years. Why aren't we hitting those targets? And when we get down to it, you guys did creative accounting on, Mr. Chair, this is my time.
Well, hang on. This is not question period. So let the minister. I'm asking the minister to try to answer your question. Then you can ask it again.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. So we have Bill Blair in the hot seat in committee. And this guy knows how to talk and filibuster, waste time. Just check this out. They're trying to have the questions answered, and Bill Blair does the best job of filibustering that I've seen any of these ministers do while they're in the hot seat. These committee videos are wild. Let's take a look. Bill Blair, Minister of National Defense, is an issue. Let's take a look.
Mr. BEZAN, 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Minister. Thanks for joining us today. Of course, this past week or so, we've been hearing criticisms from our allies on Canada failing to meet the NATO target. We heard from the Americans. Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland, has raised this concern lately, as well as Prime Minister of Estonia. Minister, do you believe Canada should be at the 2%?
Yes, I do, and I can also share with you that we're working very hard to achieve that, and in fact...
But you have in the main estimates that are here, the budget that you've tabled, the DPU that was just released, no plans on getting to 2%. Prime Minister Trudeau is quoted in secret documents that were released to the media some time ago that Canada will never make the 2%. So who's stopping you as Minister of Defence from getting to 2%? Well,
if I may answer your question, first of all, the budgetary increases I present here in the new mains estimate, plus the money that will be included in the budget when passed, that we've just introduced in Parliament, it will result in an increase in our defence spending by 27% next year over this year, and it brings us much closer to that 2%. The things that we have articulated in these estimates, under the Strong, Secure and Engaged project, and now in the new Defence Policy Update, are now Strong and Free, brings us to 1.76. But we've also indicated, Mr. BEZAN, to our allies and to Canadians that in addition to those things which are now fully funded once that budget is passed, and I very much look forward to your support in getting that budget through.
Minister, you know that there's a lot in that budget that we disagree with that we aren't going to be funding. And we know that most of the funding that you had in your DPU is backloaded for the future government. It's not going to be for this first government. You said yourself the Canadian Armed Forces are in a death spiral. You say that we need 6,700 military housing units. And yet in this budget, in these estimates, and in the next year's budget that was in the DPU, there's zero funding for new military housing. We're in a retention and recruitment problem, and yet one of the problems we're hearing is that our troops are living rough, they are unhoused, they're living in tents, cars, and campers, or living in precarious situations that sometimes could lead to domestic violence. Where are the new houses, and why are you backloading the DPU onto the future government rather than dealing with it yourself right now?
Yeah, I've two things in response to that. First of all, you recall, of course, in 2014 when we actually committed to 2% in Wales, the next thing a Conservative government did was actually reduce defence spending below 1%. And since that time...
I'll correct you on that, sir. I'll correct you on that. We made the commitment in 2014, and it was a 10-year commitment. Guess what? That 10-year commitment ends now. You've been government 9 years. Why aren't we hitting those targets? And when we get down to it, you guys did creative accounting on... Mr. Chair, this is my time.
Well, hang on. This is not question period. So let the minister. I'm asking the minister to try to answer your question. Then you can ask it again or defend.
I was only created with the fact that when you committed to 2%, the very next thing a Conservative government did was reduce defence spending to its lowest amount in any Canadian history, less than 1%. And since that time, and this is rather important, Mr. BEZAN, At the end of this year, we will have more than doubled defense spending, and every single nickel of that, I checked, you voted against it. Every single dollar
So
that we
let's-
added to defense spending, you reduced.
Well,
And let me
let's not
speak to-
forget
if I
that.
may
We
answer
just
the
had,
housing question now.
Mr. Minister, we just had a motion in front of the House last week to put a freeze on the rent increases on our own military, and you voted against that, and we need to get that rolled back so we put more money in the hands of our troops. But you went ahead anyway, and you still increased funding. You still went ahead, and we know that we have military members right now that are having to buy their own kit, and we know that that comes out of their own pocket. We were in Latvia last year as committee, and we actually saw it where troops are buying their own helmets, their own hearing protection, their own vests. You know, that is despicable that they had to actually do that themselves. So I want to move on to talk about, but like we can play this game
Does
all
the
day
member
long.
not want to hear an answer to the housing question?
Yeah, so let's get to it instead of the rhetoric.
Go ahead, Minister.
Just to be clear, we're working very hard in bases right across the country with mayors and with the private sector. The Canadian Armed Forces has a great deal of property which is serviced and available for the building of military housing. We are working with the private sector and with other orders of government to utilize the value of that land to build housing for Canadian Armed Forces members. There are some extraordinary opportunities right across this country. We said right in our policy document that we are prioritizing Halifax, Toronto, and Vancouver, but I can tell you I have proposals.
So I got a minute left, Minister,
from Trenton,
and so let me just
from
say,
Petawawa, from Borden, and from Esquimalt. There are many opportunities for us
with all
to
due
respond
respect,
very
in these
quickly
estimates,
to
there's
the
still
housing
$0,
challenges
even if you're
that they
looking at
face.
working with municipalities. Even if you're looking at working with the private sector, there's $0 from the government going into military housing, and bases need to be renovated. We know that in the last 2 years, only 38 homes were built for the Canadian Armed Forces. In my last minute here, I just want to ask a question, Minister.
You guys built when you were here.
You were just in March up in Edmonton, and you were asked a question about the CRV-7 rockets that Ukraine asked for back in November. We, as a party and Pierre Poilievre, asked the government to send them in February. And you in March said we're doing the work right now to make sure these munitions can be safely transported, and it'll only be a matter of days and move quickly. Ukraine took that, say that they expected announcements shortly. Why haven't the CRV-7 rockets been sent to Ukraine? They need them now. And where is the NASAM that you promised, or it was promised by Minister Anand 18 months ago?
And we are working with the Ukrainians with respect to delivering the CRV-7s, but there is work ongoing, and perhaps that might be a question you want to ask the Deputy Minister, the status of the safety of, first of all, the utility and the safety of transporting those munitions to Ukraine. And with respect, thank you for the question on the NASAMs. Ukraine said that they needed NASAM rockets. We don't have any. We went to the market to see if we could purchase them. It was going to take 4 or 5 years, so we went to the United States to expedite that acquisition. As I've already reported to this committee many times,
this is getting way beyond 20 seconds.
$400 million in order to expedite that. They have placed the order. They've promised us as soon as it comes off the production line, it will be delivered. But I'll also share with you, we've heard very clearly the need for
as important as this sharing might be, Mr. BEZAN has finished his questions.
$76 million just 2 weeks ago in order to...
Minister?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Kelly, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Minister. On December 7th, you told this committee that Canada had quadrupled its artillery shell order and that those shells would be delivered the following year, 2024. On April 15th, I asked you when this commitment to quadruple the ammunition order would be fulfilled. You didn't answer the question, so I'll ask again, on what date will Canada take delivery of the additional production of 155 millimeter shells, particularly the M795 variant?
Yeah, I recently went to the factory to talk to them about the delivery of existing orders, but we also talked, I think very importantly, those factories in Canada, and I've met with them all now, and one of the things they told us is that they needed to increase their production lines. They needed to secure...
Chance to answer this question in April and you didn't. Can you answer it now today? On what date? If you don't know, just say you don't know and we'll move on.
With great respect, and it doesn't matter how simply you ask the question, it doesn't make it a simple question.
But you gave me a simple answer. You said it was going to be this year, so we're already in May.
Well, but again, the delivery of munitions from those factories is limited by their production capabilities. we have come through in the DPU and in this budget, which I'm hoping you'll get an opportunity to vote for.
Okay, so I'll take
We're going
that.
to
I take
invest
that
in
you
those
don't have a date.
factories
You don't have
to
a date,
increase
so
their
we'll move
production,
on.
and we now have money in the budget.
Okay, thank you, Minister.
To offer
On what date
long-term
will
contracts
Canada-
to acquire those munitions.
On what date will Canada acquire ground-based air defenses to defend critical infrastructure, including our own troops in Latvia?
And first of all, a contract was signed for the troops in Latvia for ground-based air defense systems. That contract was signed about 5 months ago,
Okay.
and they will be delivered when we ramp up to brigade. I'm told the delivery schedule, and perhaps it's a question that our officials might be able to answer and give you a more precise date, but I'm assured that that capability will be delivered when we go to brigade strength in
Okay,
2026.
so your predecessor misled Canadians and said 14 months ago that an air defense system was en route to Ukraine, and now you've, earlier in your testimony today, admitted that it is a part of a back order of a production order.
I missed your question. I thought you were talking the air defense systems, that the ground-to-air
I am.
air defense systems for
Yes.
Latvia, and then you brought
Right,
up the
because Minister,
NASAM issue.
you have a credibility problem. Your government has a credibility problem when you announce delivery or announce that something has been acquired. You had already announced in the case of the defense system that we were procuring for Ukraine 14 months ago. You said it was on. Your predecessor said it was en route. But your testimony today is, and we know that it is not even produced yet. So can you give us a date on which Canada is going to acquire the vital ground defense system for our troops in Latvia and other critical infrastructure?
Well, and with respect to Latvia, the contracts are signed, and those munitions are now in production. We have been provided with a delivery date which coincides with us ramping up to brigade strength in 2026. There are other munitions, by the way, and other contracts that we've signed for anti-tank missiles and anti-drone systems, but the ground-to-air missile defense, the contract is signed,
Okay.
and the delivery schedule for those munitions is scheduled for 2026.
Okay, thank you. Your DPU talks about exploring options for modernizing our artillery. Assuming that the NDP allows these estimates to pass, on what date will Canada receive expanded artillery platforms?
I think I can assume that you and members of your party will not vote for any defense spending, because your record speaks for itself. Deeds speak.
For this government, we will vote non-confidence in this government at every opportunity.
And therefore, we've introduced a budget that actually provides industry with exactly what they said they required from us: investment in production and the money that provided the certainty of long-term contracts. Once this budget passed, we have already begun the process, and we will enter into those negotiations with our Canadian industries. That'll create Canadian jobs, it'll increase Canadian production, and it will deliver for the Canadian Armed Forces the munitions that they need.
Your DPU says
Whether
you
you
will
support it or
explore.
not.
I support getting the troops the kit that they need, Minister, and I'd like to know if these estimates contain any certainty around or a date or funding authorization for the replacement and modernization of our artillery.
30 seconds or less, please.
Yeah, there's money here and in the upcoming budget that we've presented. The dates will be determined as quickly as we can pass that. And so, again, although I know you're not going to vote for it, if you could just get out of the way and let us bring that forward, then we'll get it passed.
Are a critical part of maritime defense. Is there anything in these estimates to replace our 40-year-old submarines?
No, because and perhaps I was unclear, but when we said we had some work to do with respect to submarines, we need submarines. We've got to replace the Victoria-class fleet. They're old. They're unserviceable. They can't do the job. So we've got work to do to replace
you,
them.
Mr. Kelly.
And that work is underway.
Thank you, Minister.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. Things are wild in these committee investigations. You can see right there that Bill Blair does not want to answer questions directly. Gives like answers that are abstract, not really targeting the question at all, promoting his own agenda. He does a lot of that. Again, these committee videos are awesome, guys. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. Thank you very much for watching the video. We've got a lot more coming, so like, subscribe, share, get notified. Please leave a comment, love the comments, and get notified. It's important to get notified. We do live shows here. If they're interesting, come and check out our community. That's it. We're going to wrap this one up. We'll catch you next video. Thank you for watching this one. Catch you next time.